Hello and welcome to our very first episode of You've Got This. I'm Kat.
And I'm Von.
And this podcast has been developed to reach all the expats community in Dubai. We are very passionate about mental health, and we're also aware that being an expat has its own unique challenges, amazing things as well, but obviously a lot of challenges that face expats as they relocate to a new country, specifically in our case, Dubai.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a unique term, being an expat, isn't it? Like, if you're in your own home country and you have your own comforts, it's great. But when you move to a different country, different culture, different ways of doing things, sometimes your well-being can suffer a little. And we're extremely passionate and we love to talk about mental health. And I think what we're doing here is we hope to, explore mental health challenges, from the mild to the serious. And also learn how to live with that, with the difficulties and the challenges and the adversities along the way, and being able to manage that as an expat in Dubai.
Yeah, and I think part of the beautiful thing about being an expat, it obviously comes with a lot of advantages.
Yeah.
I often think about, how do I have such an amazing being here 10 years, but how do I have such an amazing set of friends and people that are close enough to call family? What is it about this experience that creates that kind of collaboration and community? And I think there are certain traits that are distinct in all expats. They're adventurous, they're open-minded, they're interested in sort of pursuing their dreams. And I think those qualities together sort of make the expat life exciting and enriching. But obviously there are downsides to that journey as well. It can be lonely, it can be hard. You're away from family, you're away from your support networks. I know for both of us, I had my children here, so that felt, very strange and surreal to be away from my parents and them not being, available for that big milestone in our life.
And I think that is the important term there, that support network. That, when you're in your own home country, you can reach out to your mum. Look, if you have an argument with your husband, you can get in the car and you can drive to mum's house. You cannot do that as an expat. You can go see your friends, but sometimes you don't want to go let your friends know about the ins and out, which is so important. When family is around, you can let them know what's going on, or you can drop your kids. Yes, I know we live and we have the opportunity of having a nanny, but you could drop your kids with the grandparents while you're dealing with stuff. I think what happens is we're so reliant on ourselves as expats, which, can cause a lot of difficulties in the mental health space.
I think it's that, and I think apart from being isolated and not having your usual networks to sort of lean back into, with these mental health challenges, even when you're your own country, it can be hard to navigate. And I think trying to understand, when is it serious enough that I need to do something about this? Yeah. It's not that I'm not having panic attacks every day, but sometimes I'm feeling really, really anxious. At what point do I go and seek supports? And I think that's part of, what we are trying to demonstrate through this podcast, that, not everything is a mental health crisis, and nor should it be. But what to do in those instances where you do need external supports.
Exactly, and I think that is the exact reason, and that is our mission, to develop sort of a community in Dubai that takes away also the stigma of mental health, where we're talking about these mental health issues, offering, sharing tips, sharing experiences, insights, personal stories from other expats. How have they managed? How have they not managed? The ups and downs of starting a family here, of working here, of living, having children, the A to the Z of the expat life. So I think if you're looking for advice, some inspiration, and, we will keep it real, and hopefully there'll be some belly laughs along the way. But yeah, I think that's why we're doing this. So, yeah.
I think, what would you say, Yvonne, are some of the unique challenges that face expats specifically? We've talked about, like, obviously being isolated and not knowing how to navigate sort of mental health supports, but what are some of the distinct experiences that expats face that can or may affect their mental health?
So I think number one for me is social integration. You have your friends back home that you've had since high school, so there's that stepping stone of community. But as an expat in Dubai, you come in and you have to start all over again, right? You've got to meet the mums of if you don't have kids, you've got to start afresh and go out there and get rid of your social anxiety and meet new people, join clubs and be active about it, because, sadly, if you don't, that can really have an effect on your mental well-being. Would you agree?
Yeah, I see this a lot. And so Dubai being quite transient, so I know, there's a lot of flux coming in and a lot of people leaving, and that's an amazing thing in a lot of ways, because it makes you resilient and able to adapt. But it can feel very sort of lonely at times, because it's so big and so fast and so full on. It's like, where do I fit into this? How do and if you're not partnered up, or you're coming out to Dubai, for the first time by yourself, it can feel overwhelming, really, to know there's anything you want is in Dubai. It's just, where do I want to be? There's too many options almost to figure out where do I fit in all of this.
And it's not just, if you're raising a family here, because that's not just what a lot of the expats are doing. There's a lot of single people here too. But then there are a lot of older expats who've sent their kids off to college. And then you've got the husband who's still working, and maybe, mum is at home, and you've got empty nesters, and that can sometimes be really lonely as well. So, and I see this a lot actually, and it's about go out and meet people. You've got to get out of the comfort zone, as hard as it is. Go up at that gate, at that school gate, and just say hi to that mum, because otherwise it's going to be even more difficult. And I really truly believe that, sometimes, if not all the time, with mental health, that social isolation can have a really big effect. Would you agree?
Know, yeah. There's evidence
loneliness,
to suggest that, but yeah,
right?
That's absolutely true. And I think the beautiful thing about Dubai is that, because a lot of people, I don't know the statistic on the population, but a good percentage of the population are expatriates. They are more open-minded, so they're not gonna be like, oh my God, why are you saying hi to me? They're expecting that, they welcome that. And I do tend to find, I don't know, biased experience, but I do tend to find that people are more approachable and willing to chat to you, less sort of in their own bubble than you might find at a school gate at, Sydney, Australia.
Yeah.
That people are so entrenched in our home country.
Yeah.
We share the same origin, but, people seem to be, I'm just comparing back to Sydney, a lot more insular. They're a lot more, this is where I've grown up, this is where my family is, this is where I went to school. You sort of like live and die within a 5-kilometre radius of your house. Whereas when you're in Dubai and you're mixing with all different types of nationalities, all different types of people, there's this like real exciting mix and open-mindedness that sort of underlie the
absolutely.
community.
And I'll have to say, in the 18 years that I've been in Dubai, I've never come across a person that's not wanted to have a conversation. So if you do make the effort, and we're not just talking about going to bars and clubs. If you go to sporting, find a community club of sporting, or a hobby that you're interested in, hiking, there are so many things, and you go and meet people. You can actually meet, what do we call it? The family that you choose.
Yeah, true.
And you can make some amazing connections here. But not just with isolation and loneliness, but, it's also the cultural shock and adjustments as well, especially if you're not used to sort of different types of cultural arrangements, etc. I don't know if I'm explaining myself correctly.
The culture shock is definitely real.
Yeah,
it is.
And it can be very overwhelming. And it can be overwhelming for people that are working in the corporate world, you know, into the office every day, meeting different nationalities. Everyone communicates very differently, you know, like an Arab communicates different to someone from India, to someone that is Filipino, you know, to someone that's Polish, Russian, Greek, you know, and then you've got the Australian Greek and the Australian Italian. Like, it's just such a melting pot of nationalities. You're not just sort of meeting
exactly
that one particular person, right? So that can be very stressful, you know, at work if you have clients and you need to like yourself.
Sense of appropriacy, what's expected here in this interaction, and
exactly.
But you know what's fascinating? Like, because obviously being here so long, you do interact. I mean, the most beautiful thing about being in Dubai is the fact that you intermix with so many different nationalities. Like, it is so rich and so vibrant and so exciting. I know from where we're both from, which is Australia. Australia's called multicultural, but how often do I get to mix with the amount of different nationalities as I do in Dubai? Nowhere near.
Absolutely
and
agree.
And this is what I feel privileged to bring up my children
100%.
in an environment where that is the norm. You'll appreciate this.
And as as multicultural as we are in Australia, I can assure you that when I travel back to Australia on holiday, and, you know, we ask our cousins, what's Diwali? They have no idea, but yet my children will be able
celebrate
to
it.
celebrate
I know,
Diwali
I know,
and Ramadan and, you know, just understand all these different cultural facets, which is what it should be about. And I think that we as expats learn how to be a lot more empathetic and kind and understanding. When you're understanding, you're more empathetic. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
And sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's okay. No, I just remember my 5-year-old coming home from school and him saying to me, "Mum, do you know how to say absolutely not in Russian?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "Niet Kambodja." I'm like, I don't know if that's what it is, but I just love that, like, he learned Russian from school. Like,
Right.
fantastic. Like, when in Australia, like, that is not, it's not the experience. It's not the true sort of multicultural, as the term suggests. Like, you would expect it to be integrated, whereas in Australia it's quite, well, there's a lot of Greek people that live here and there's a lot of Polish people that live here, whereas Dubai, it's just like everything and everyone all at the one time, which is
but also they're all striving for that same sort of goal, you know?
Yes.
That
brings us,
go.
That's perfect, because that really does get us to the point where, like, we've talked about what is an expat, we've talked about, you know, what are the distinct characteristics that overlap all expats, and we've, you know, touched on the fact that, yes, it can be isolating, overwhelming, culture shock is a real thing, you know, all these factors come into play when we're thinking about our mental health. And what I've noticed from working with different clients is, I think it's particularly pronounced that first year that you sort of relocate to another country. You feel extra vulnerable at that time. And I felt this myself. I've seen this time and time again with clients, that first year where you're really trying to understand, where do I fit? What is this? Like, there's just so much to take on board, and it's almost like culture shock and just overwhelm of, this is all fantastic.
Yeah.
But how do I ground? How do I find where I fit in all of this?
And I do think, and I don't know if you'll agree, but I think it does settle. And I'm sure you've heard this before, after 2 years.
Yes.
Like, that is that mark. If you either love it and you're going to be able to manage after 2 years, or you're like, no, this is not for me. I'm out. I can't.
And that's okay as well.
It's absolutely fine.
And that is okay.
Because it's not for everybody, you know. And I think that, you know, that side of it, coming to a new country and integrating, is just, it's difficult. But we're here, we hope, to be able to discuss some of those challenges, and most importantly, how to, alleviate the toolkit.
So I'm going to give an example. So I think a really unique factor about a lot of the expats coming to Dubai is that they've relocated with a job. Okay, so I don't know what the visa situation is, but in a lot of instances, people are relocating once they have a job. So their whole world, in a sense, becomes that job for a period of time whilst they establish themselves. That can be wonderful because they're immersed in it, there's a routine in place and so on, but it can feel quite like dislocating as well, because you're being put in accommodation that maybe you didn't choose. You are being expected to perform at a level that, there's no sort of slowly, it's like you're thrown in the deep end and expected to swim.
Because it's not just doing what your CV says, it's the adaptation of understanding how Dubai works.
Yeah.
And we do things a certain way.
Yeah.
Even doing business,
Yes.
essentially,
Yeah.
in this region is done a certain way. And I think if you come in and you don't have an open mind to that, and I think
Yes.
most expats do have an open mind, but if you don't, it can be extremely stressful and frustrating. And sometimes, the worry and the stress can turn into anxiety.
And that, coupled with isolation, I think is sort of what we wanted to touch on today and sort of conclude with. So when we have a situation where you've relocated, potentially for work, it's your first year, you are, in accommodation that maybe you didn't choose, you don't have your support network set in place, there are high expectations at work, this can create sort of a boiling pot of unique challenges that can feel overwhelming and scary. So part of what we're encouraging you to do is to just sort of and this is what I encourage clients to do, is to really take a step back and understand how much you have taken on, and really pat yourself on the back, because most people are not taking these risks. They are not out there internationally throwing themselves into a situation that is this out of your comfort zone, because most people would prefer to just sort of do what's the easy next thing, and if that's just getting a job in the next town or the next place, there's nothing wrong with that. But just take a moment to acknowledge what a brave thing that is that you've done. And I think often when I say that to people, they're like, yeah, that is pretty cool that I did that.
Yeah, that I uprooted also maybe my entire family.
Yeah, it's a big disruptor.
Huge.
Out of your comfort zone and into the deep end.
And it's a skill, and it's a skill of resilience.
Yeah.
And I think that's
with a capital R.
Yeah, and it's an important term, because I hear a lot of stuff on, social media and in here and there, and, parents, how do I teach my kid resilience? When you give them the opportunities to take chances, to undertake challenges, to be in situations where it's a little bit difficult and they have to feel a little bit
out of their depth.
Discomfort,
heaven forbid.
And if there's any takeaway from this, that's, I think, a very important trait that most expats have.
And I think
they're resilient.
The resilience piece, and also the fact that a lot of parents ask me, my child's not confident, how do I increase their confidence? They're just, and confidence is not something you learn, it's something that you do. You do it from overcoming a challenge.
Correct.
You do it from putting yourself in discomfort and then figuring out a way, and you're okay. Yes, that gives you confidence. And I think the expat story is one of resilience and confidence and heroic, really.
Absolutely.
to do that. So really, if you are someone that is struggling, I guess, with their expat journey, we would encourage you just to take a minute to reflect on why you've started this journey to begin with. What were your reasons for coming? What obstacles have you already overcome? What have you learnt from this already? Because too often we stay in a comfort zone that is comfortable, but you're not growing and you're not evolving, and that can destroy you in a different way. So
Absolutely.
It's this sort of realizing that okay, I'm uncomfortable. I'm deeply uncomfortable. I'm scared. I don't know, what's going to happen next. But the parallel to that is being in a comfort zone that's too restrictive and too small, and you kind of perish, and shrivel up.
Yeah.
So
well, if you don't change,
exactly,
you don't
evolve
grow,
or die.
right?
Yeah.
You've got to get out of your comfort zone. If you don't get out of your comfort zone, with anything,
Yeah,
you want to
true.
lose a bit of weight, you got to change your diet.
True.
Go to the gym.
True.
Pick your heart, right? So on that, I mean, we'd love to hear from listeners
Yep.
about their expat story
Experience, we would love
and
to.
their experiences, what brought them out here, and what are some of the things that they've had to face and how they overcame them.
Absolutely. And for our next episode, we're really looking forward to addressing sort of a common concern, which is, anxiety and worry and sort of
the distinction
between the two. But we would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining us for this first episode, and we look forward to connecting with you soon. Thank you.